This is Tempest with 91.8 The Fan. I have Chris Bevins here.
Hi.
I have a few questions for you today.
Sure.
Mostly I'm going to concentrate on the fact that you are a director, even though you're also a scriptwriter and a voice actor.
Yes, a little bit of everything.
First, I want to ask, where do you get your inspiration for directing, writing, and acting?
Primarily it comes from the show itself. Every show is its own animal. Every show is unique, and I try my darndest to do that show justice, to tell the story that they told in Japan, and to hopefully elicit the same emotional response from our audience that they got from their audience. As far as like true inspiration, from all over the place. I have, there are film directors and voice directors that I look up to. Andrea Romano from Warner Brothers is kind of my hero.
I love her.
She's the reason I do what I do. And I was so fortunate enough to Comic-Con about 5-6 years ago. She was doing a signing at the Warner Brothers booth, which was right next door to the Funimation booth. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go meet her right now. And so I stood in line and then told her, like, yes, I'm standing in line for your autograph, but also I want to tell you I'm a voice director, and you are the reason I'm a voice director. Your inspiration for me. And yeah, she was so sweet about it, so sweet. But then beyond that, I take a lot of inspiration from film directors, especially directors who specialize in dialogue. That's the Coen brothers. Anything by the Coen brothers, I try to rip them off as often as possible, because they are my heroes. Terry Gilliam, Tarantino, Kevin Smith, they all have very distinct voices in their dialogue, and so I really take a lot of inspiration from them as well.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned Andrea Romano,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that you're a fan of comic books.
Oh, yes.
I take it you're a big fan of Batman as well.
Yeah, kind of.
What comic book would you most like to see adapted as an anime, preferably one that you would direct?
Ooh, well, I'd have to actually go to the other side of the fence, and I'm much more of a Marvel maniac than I am a DC. I know. DC kind of broke me last year.
Oh, yeah.
But I started as a Marvel kid. I started reading comics in '86, and yes, I'm that old. And it was West Coast Avengers. It was on the spinner rack at the local convenience store that I walked, a mile down to from my house and spent my paper route money on. So I have a real huge soft spot for Hawkeye. He's my favorite. He's my favorite comic book character of all time. I would love to do Thunderbolts, especially the era of Thunderbolts that he was the leader. I think it's just such a great concept of heroes or villains trying to be heroes, and trying to do good after all the horrible things they've done over the years. Thunderbolts is one of my favorite books, and I love that layers and complexity of characters, and that book has one. And Songbird's another one of my favorite characters in all of comic books, and I'd love an opportunity to do something like that.
Excellent. What do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment as a director?
Wow. God, that's hard. I'm always very proud of the work that others do with me. I can only take so much credit. I may cast someone in a role, but if they're not able to bring that role to life in the way that I hope they are, then I'm not doing my job right. I think there are things like Princess Jellyfish, my new show, I am absolutely gaga over. I cannot say enough good things about the show, about the cast, about everybody who's had anything to do with that show. I'm so proud of it. There's also there's a couple other shows. Beck was an accomplishment. I mean, it's one of those things where the stars aligned, and we were able to, I was able to bring in Taliesin Jaffe to co-direct with me, and he and I just kind of barely knew each other at the time, but we were both we started talking. We both realized we both like comic books, and we always talked about comic books, and He was like one of these. He was like, let's see if we can find someone to work together on. And then one day I called him up and said, hey, you ever heard of this show called Beck? He's like, yeah. Man, I pity the bastard who's got to, pity the poor fool who's got to direct that, And I'm like, great, want to come to Texas and direct it with me? Yes, I do. That in itself was such a challenge and a lot to contend with. And Talis and I are pretty confident in our voice directing skills, but I don't think either of us were super confident in our musical skills. So we brought in, Mike McFarland also to be the music director and music producer for the show. Almost every bit of that show that is sung was handled by Mike. Not just the directing side, but he also adapted most of the lyrics for that show as well. Took the lyrics that were sometimes partially in English already, English, made them make sense.
Yeah.
Took the Japanese lyrics, made them make sense, and really just did a bang-up job. So
that's such a difficult thing to do already.
It is, yeah. And there was so much intricacy to that show, and such a huge cast, and it's so real. It's not. There's nothing in that show other than the look of Beck the dog that is animated. Anything in that show could happen in a live-action show. There's nothing there that specifically animation, tied to animation. It could have been an indie movie, live action movie. Love action. Still haven't seen the live action Beck, but I'd love to.
That's got to be something. I have to see that one too.
Yeah.
Now, those of us in the entertainment industry tend to hold ourselves to ridiculous goals.
Yes.
What is your most ridiculous goal right now?
Goes back to the comic book thing. I want to direct shows based on Marvel Comics, period. That is my ultimate goal. And not just Marvel necessarily, but specifically Marvel, just because I grew up on these awesome Warner Brothers cartoons, the Batman, Superman, Justice League, and stuff. But the Marvel side never quite held up to that same standard, especially in the 90s. They're there now. Oh, God. Avengers vs. Mighty Heroes, the show that's airing now, is so good, and it makes me so mad that it's so good, because I'm like, well, that means I can't go, hey guys, you're doing it wrong, let me do better, because they're doing it so good. It is the most perfectly cast show. Everyone is so spot on in their roles. It's brilliantly written. So yeah, I would love to be able to do something like that. It makes me really jealous that they're doing it so well right now, and I don't get to be a part of it. Because I'm such a huge comic nerd. Yeah.
I completely understand. Now, my last thing that I want to ask for you is to just tell us a little bit about Princess Jellyfish, which debuted at this convention,
yes.
And it's going to be released the 28th.
28th, yeah. You can't sum the show up in a sentence. Anytime you try to sum up Princess Jellyfish in a sentence, you're not doing it justice. It is the most warm, heart-filled, and so real. Like, the characters are so real, even though they're a little over the top at times. It's just so sweet, and it's the kind of show that makes you realize or remember why you love anime. There's just, I can't say enough good things about it. I can't even form words about how good of a show it is. The performances from our cast are, I think, some of the best performances these actors have ever given. I think Josh Greeley kills as Kuranosuke. I think there was nobody else who could have done it. Having auditioned a lot, everyone who I thought was capable, he was the only choice. Maxie Whitehead blows Kimi out of the water. Monica Rial literally is the only person in the world physically capable, I think, of the part of Maya, because she's so crazy. Everyone in that show just does such a good job. We all brought our A games. We all immediately fell in love with the show as soon as we saw, 2 frames of animation.
It is beautifully animated to begin with.
It's beautifully animated. It's the characters, the comedic timing is so perfect. I've watched the show even without the benefit of a translation in front of me, and I'm falling out of my chair laughing just because the physical comedy is so brilliant. And it's so sweet, and it's all about being an otaku and being proud of being an otaku, being proud of who you are, and it's okay to be a nerd, it's okay to be a geek. just love yourself for it, and it's just so affirming. I can't say enough good things about it. I really can't. Greatest show, one of the best shows I've ever worked on, easily, and one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Well, that's definitely something for fans to look forward to on the 28th.
Please give Princess Jellyfish love. Don't be afraid of it because it has that P word in the title. It's for dudes too, I promise.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.